Cafecito con negocio podcast.
How's it going, everyone? Tony Martinez here with Negozi for another episode of Cafecito con Negozi podcast. And today's topic is one that's been in the news lately regarding the economy, regarding Trump's tariffs actions, and also the immigration situation. So, to go over this in the next few minutes, I brought onto the podcast two experts that are very knowledgeable in finance and real estate and the economy. We have our colleagues from Negozi, Juliet and Jessica. How's it going? ¿Cómo están?
Doing great, Tony. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, awesome. We're excited. So, Juliet, tell us a little bit about what's going on with Trump's tariffs. He thinks it's a good strategy to put tariffs, but it looks like it's affecting the economy, right?
Yeah, totally. Construction projects would be affected by these new tariffs, especially on commodity items like steel, wood, plumbing, all the engineering equipment, and the electrical products that we need for these new buildings. So the residential constructions permits fell 6.8% because the builders has are less optimistic about the economy at this point. So these politics are affecting the sentiment of the buyers and the builders at this moment.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, Juliet, because consumers' sentiment really plays into the whole psychology of the economy, right? Because if you feel like it's not worth the risk to invest in a house, or if you're a builder and you're seeing, that data that construction permits are going down, you're like, wait, something's gonna happen. Let me not take the risk. And then because you don't want to be the one left out, right? When everything kind of goes bad, you're like, oh, I should have been more proactive. And how do you feel about this, Jessica?
No, it's an interesting time for sure. I mean, it seems like Juliet said the builders are having this sort of uncertainty. Okay, well, material is going to get more expensive, so I'm going to have to charge more for this new construction home. When inventory is already low as it is, we have a lot of buyers in the market that they want to get into a home, but people are just not selling because they refinanced or bought a house for a really low interest rate during the pandemic. And now they're just gonna stay there forever. So it's kind of tough right now. And going back to the state of the economy as well and the uncertainties, I was working with a buyer recently. We were looking at $2 million homes, and we submitted an offer, and he said, Jessica, I think I'm gonna get laid off. And sure enough, a week later he got laid off. So it's just a lot of factors that, just like you said, Tony, people are saying like, maybe I should wait a little bit. And so it's just an interesting time.
Yeah. And, the whole, that's an interesting dynamic, right? So somebody's looking to apply for a mortgage, for capital to be able to afford a home in this case. And their cash flow, right? Their payroll, their job may be in limbo, right? And so all the economy has so many different levels to it.
Yeah.
And another part of the dynamic is if you're a builder, you're looking at these high construction costs, like Juliet said, because of the Trump tariffs. Now everything's more expensive to build. And then you see that your labor force is shrinking because a lot of the immigrants out there that the construction industry depends on are not showing up to work. They're afraid to be at their jobs, to leave their homes, or as Trump is promising to deport millions of people, that may affect also the labor force. Do you think that's going to affect the economy, Juliet, if there's less immigrants working in construction?
Yeah, for sure. It all reflects at the final cost of the buildings, but also we have to have an account on the interest rates, right? Because the Fed in the last conference keep the rate at 4.5%, but they are still seeing two rate cuts coming this 2025. It can increase or just give a push for the new buyers to get a mortgage, make a deal for them. But if the costs are increasing for the cuts on labor markets, on the labor positions for immigrants, the final cost for these buildings gonna be increased. And they said that new houses can be like a 9.2 key more
Wow,
expensive.
more expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we were saying earlier that maybe now's the time to buy a home. So because if you think it's gonna go up in price, but do you think people, Jessica, are buying homes if they may lose their jobs?
I think people, there's sort of a mental game that people play with themselves, right? Because it is a large purchase. So, I mean, you can be afraid, live afraid, and never make the jump and stay exactly where you are, and that's totally fine. Or, a lot of people think too, they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to buy a house and then I'm going to lose my house. If I lose my job, it's going to be the 2008 scenario all over again, right? With the housing crisis. But that's not the case. Now lenders take a lot more into account when you go and apply for a mortgage. They look at your debt to income ratio to make sure that if anything happens, that you can still afford to pay your mortgage for a couple of months at least before you have to even think about, defaulting or, talking to the bank and saying, hey, I really can't make this payment, right? So they do have a cushion for that so that you can get back on your feet. So I think, it's just saying, am I ready? Is this something that I really want? And then really being afraid and doing it anyway, right? And actually talking to a professional that you can trust, which I know that Negozi has a great network of real estate affiliates. Isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly, Jessica and Juliet. Yeah, so for those of you that are listening to the podcast the first time or are learning about Negozi, so Negozi is a network of financial professionals in every city in the US. You could find a tax accountant, an insurance agent, or a real estate professional that is part of Negozi. So if you're in Atlanta, Houston, and Bakersfield, and you're looking to invest in a property, buy a home, you're not alone anymore, right? Or if you move to a new city, go to negozi.com. You could search for somebody in your town, in your zip code, and they could guide you. And they're bilingual, Inglés y Español. And they could kind of help you understand, hey, look, this is a dynamic right now. And if you need, say, for example, you want to buy a house, but your taxes are not up to date, then they're going to recommend you to another member that's still part of the Negozi network. So that's the power of Negozi. And that's what we have for you guys today at Cafecito con Negozi podcast, where we'll keep you updated on the state of the economy, Trump's tariffs, and also soon Trump tax updates with all the new changes coming up. So thank you, Juliet and Jessica, for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.